Hello, Al. Hello, Linda.
Very good.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And again, congratulations. This is a movie that you can't help being moved by it. But I think the thing that moved me most by it was how nonchalant the performances were of your
Yes.
actors. Hence the title.
I never talked about what I did during the war, and I still wouldn't if I hadn't read that article in the newspaper that said the Holocaust didn't happen.
There were signs all over the city which said, "Whoever helps Jews will be punished by death."
We thought if they shoot us for keeping one, they'll shoot us for keeping two.
How did you decide who would play who?
That's a great question. It was an interesting and totally fun jigsaw puzzle. Once Helen Mirren said yes, I knew, okay, she's got to do Irene Good Updike, who
Irene.
goes through such torment. And then it was just like, okay, as people would come in, I would think, okay, the essence of F. Murray Abraham is this sort of jovial, like I see that in these stories that I've been working with for so long. So I'm going to give him Bert Bacove, and it was just a kind of, a delicious jigsaw puzzle. Had they come in a different order, the cast would have been totally different. But because they're all so gifted, I don't think it would have made that. I mean, it would be a different film, but it wouldn't be, it would just be different. And I feel so lucky and uh, charmed that she said yes and that it started the waterfall.
Uh, was it difficult directing your actors to give you that kind of delivery?
These are the greatest actors in the world. So they didn't require that much direction, especially after on first, when we began all of these recording sessions, I said, the idea is this is all very just, they're just recounting their ordinary lives. This has happened 30, 40 years ago. And these are not grand heroes in their own minds. They're just people who did what they thought was right. And to a person, they all got that and understood it. One interesting thing did happen. Ellen Burstyn, there's a little story in the film about how she says, that the people they were hiding, would do the jobs that Mama didn't like to do. She would darn the socks and do the ironing or whatever it was that Mama didn't want to do. And that's it. That's a very quick little story. And she read it, and as she read it, she cried. And at the end of the take, I said, "Oh, that was interesting." And she said, "Yeah, that was weird. I don't know why I cried." And I said, "Well, try it again. Maybe throw it away. It's not that big a memory." And she said, "Okay." And she did it again, and she cried again. And we looked at each other over the Zoom, and it was like, "Yeah, something is working here. Let's leave it alone and move on." Because when you're given an instrument like an Ellen Burstyn, you don't question it. It's like that's the sound this instrument is making. I'm not going to pretend, hey, don't cry. It's perfect and it works in the film because in some ways those ordinary quotidian nonchalant details are what makes this story different.
But did any of these stories get to you?
Just about each of these stories at some point would get me, and would I remember finding the story that ended up being the last bite in the film, and when I found that, I thought it just hit me. Here people, the guy years later saying, he doesn't consider himself haunted by the war, but on the other hand, sometimes he wakes up in the middle of the night and wants to jump out the window. And it's like, well, is he jumping out to escape? Is he jumping out to take his own life? Is he jumping out for freedom? I didn't know, but I just felt like that ambiguity and the fact that it stayed with him so much, and I kept thinking we're going to find something else for the end, and I never found anything that hit me in quite that way.
There's archival footage that has never been seen before in this movie. Did it surprise you that after 80 years that there's still film out there that hasn't been seen?
Well, I think the reason is because a lot of the stuff that has never been seen is color stuff of ordinary people doing ordinary things. And that was what we wanted. But if you're making another kind of film, you don't want the boring stuff of people doing the dishes or swimming in lakes or riding motorcycles. You want explosions and Nazis marching and guns and all that. And we had some of that too, but the stuff that we found that had never been seen before, I feel like is because for us that was gold. The boring moments, the nonchalant moments, to use your word again, like cooking, or chicken cooking on a grill in 1942, like that's great for us. Little children playing in the field, like it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's them, and it feels alive and current, and like it's happening right now, and that's what we wanted.
We changed all the names of the Jewish children from David and Yankel to Pierre and Jean.
I told the children that if anyone asked if they were Jewish, they had to tell them no, or I would hit them. We practiced this many times.
Your name is not Sarah. Your name is Suzanne. You're not Jewish, and you never were Jewish, and you never were called Sarah.
Yeah, even a Nazi soldier doing a little dance.
Yeah, that one. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Josh, the editor, Josh Fried, found that. I was like, what the heck is this? And how like, of course, in a movie about like, there's very few movies that would want to use that. But for us, it was like, it was perfect because it showed like they're just human beings on both sides. Like these are not monsters and these are not heroes. Human beings over here, human beings over here. They're being divided, as we are by all of these forces that divide us into different classes and groups and races and parties. And, my view is it's an accident of birth that makes this person in Africa and this person a New Yorker.
Absolutely.
And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, we're just human beings. We're on this planet for a very short period of time, not to get to kumbaya, but like, come on, we have to evolve at some point to the point where we realize we're all in the same species here.
We decided when you would close the door on someone like that and you heard later that he was destroyed, how would you feel the rest of your life? I think I would be destroyed myself.
For the longest time when I was working on this, I did feel like I don't know what I can do to make the world better, but at least I can tell these stories. I help these stories get out there into the world, and maybe that'll have some kind of impact. So yeah, it's an odd world we find ourselves in.
I know we're running out of time. Have you met any heroes in your life, true heroes in your life? And what makes a hero?
Well, that's a great question, Al. Well, I have. I have. I mean, I think I've met a lot of heroes. And I think what makes a hero is somebody who does what they think is right, no matter the consequences. There's some definition of courage that is, you know, no, it is scary. Like I remember thinking maybe as a kid, like, oh, those people aren't scared. No, no, no. They are scared. You're scared and you do it anyway. That's courage.